Good afternoon, Year 6. It feels so good to be back with you, even though I'm not back with you and you're not all back with each other, but we're all back to something and it's nice to be back with you. So whether you are at home or you at school, if you're listening, it is good to speak to you again. Congratulations already to Lucy B, Dylan, Rachel and Matty, who have already done a quiz on their AR, and to Austin, who's already done 2. Some more of you might have done it between then and when you're watching. Sorry, I keep waggling my pen at you. I'll put that down. But congratulations to those guys, and hopefully lots of you will be joining them soon. I know Mrs. Brazier and I have sent through your targets, so hopefully you can get some AR books and quizzes going very, very soon. You join me on a very momentous day. For the first time in 72 days, I am allowed out of the house for a walk. Just take a moment. 72 days. I can go for a walk. Never thought I'd be so excited about that. So it is a very exciting day. We are all back where we've got our new book and I can go for a walk after I've had my tea. So it's a very exciting day for everybody. So the book that we have chosen for you is called The London Eye Mystery. Now, usually we get you to vote and you have a say in your book, but because our topic is all about Mary Poppins and London, we thought that actually a book set in London would be a really good way to go. I know some of you have already read this, so if you have, spoilers free, please. Now, if you don't know what the London Eye is, I need your teacher or whoever is there at the moment to stop this video and you need to Google and have a look to see what the London Eye is, because it's going to be really important for this story. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see it. So pause now and have a look and then come back and we will start chapter 1 of the London Eye Mystery. Chapter 1, a giant bicycle wheel in the sky. My favourite thing to do in London is to fly the eye. On a clear day, you can see for 25 miles in all directions, because you are in the largest observation wheel ever built. You are sealed into one of the 32 capsules with the strangers who were next to you in the queue, and when they close the doors, the sound of the city is cut out. You begin to rise. The capsules are made of glass and steel and are hung from the rim of the wheel. As the wheel turns, the capsules use the force of gravity to stay upright, and it takes 30 minutes to go a full circle. From the top of the ride, Cat, so cat here is not an actual cat, it's cat a person, spelled with a capital K. From the top of the ride, Cat says London looks like Toy Town, and the cars on the roads below look like abacus beads going left and right and stopping and starting. I think London looks like London, and the cars like cars, only smaller. The best thing to see from up there is the River Thames. You can see how it loops and curves, but when you're on the ground, you think it's straight. The next best thing to look at is the spokes and metallic hawsers. Hawsers, I don't know what that is. Hawsers. So maybe that's like the nuts and bolts. Google it, let me know. The next best thing to look at is the spokes and metallic hawsers of the eye itself. You are looking at the only cantilevered structure of its kind on Earth. It's designed like a giant bicycle wheel in the sky, supported by a massive A-frame. It's also interesting to watch the capsules on either side of yours. You see strangers looking out, just like you're doing. The capsule that's higher than yours becomes lower than yours, and the capsule that is lower than yours becomes higher. You have to shut your eyes because it makes a strange feeling go up and down your esophagus. You're glad the movement is smooth and slow. And then your capsule goes lower and you're sad because you do not want the ride to end. You would like to go round one more time, but it's not allowed. So you get out feeling like an astronaut coming down from space, a little lighter than you were. We took Salem to the eye. So Salem is obviously one of their friends, we're guessing. We took Salem to the London Eye because he'd never been before. A stranger came up to us in the queue offering us a free ticket. We took it and gave it to Salem. We shouldn't have done this, but we did. He went up on his own at 11:32, the 24th of May, and was due to come down at 12:02 the same day. He turned and waved to Kat and me as he boarded. But you couldn't see his face, just his shadow. They sealed him in with 20 other people whom we didn't know. Kat and I tracked Salem's capsule as it made its orbit. When it reached the highest point, we both said, "Now!" at the same time, and Kat laughed and I joined in. That's how we knew we'd been tracking the right one. We saw the people bunch up as the capsule came back down, facing northeast towards the automatic camera for the souvenir photograph. They were just dark bits of jackets, legs, dresses and sleeves. Then the capsule landed. The doors opened and the passengers came out in 2s and 3s. They walked off in different directions and their faces were smiling. Their paths probably never crossed again. But Salem wasn't amongst them. We waited for the next capsule and the next and the one after that. He still didn't appear. Somewhere, somehow, in the 30 minutes of riding the London Eye in his sealed capsule, he had vanished off the face of the earth. This is how having a funny brain that runs on a different operating system from other people's helped me to figure out what had happened. Chapter 2, News of a Hurricane. It started the day the letter from Aunt Gloria arrived. Aunt Gloria is my mum's sister. Mum calls her Glow and Kat calls her Auntie Glow. Dad calls her Hurricane Gloria because he says she leaves a trail of devastation in her wake. I asked him what this meant. Did it mean she was clumsy like I am? He said it wasn't so much things that she upset, which wouldn't be so bad, more people and emotions. Does that mean she's evil? I asked. Dad said she didn't do it on purpose, so no, she wasn't evil. She was just a handful. I asked him what being a handful meant, and he said it meant being larger than life. Some of you are a handful. When I tried to ask what being larger than life meant, he put his hand on my shoulder. "Not now, Ted," he said. The morning Aunt Gloria's letter came was the same as any other. I heard the post drop, as usual, on the doormat. I was on Shreddy number 3, and the radio weather forecast was saying it was set fair, but with a risk of showers in the southeast. Kat was eating toast, standing up and wriggling. It wasn't that she had fleas, although that's what looked like it was going on. She was listening to her weirdo music on headphones, which meant she couldn't hear the weather and wouldn't wear a raincoat or bring her umbrella to school, which meant that she would get wet and I wouldn't, and this was good. Dad was hopping around in one sock, complaining about how the washing machine had eaten all his socks and he was late. Mum was looking through the laundry bag for a spare. "Ted, get the post," Mum said. She was in her nurse's uniform, and even I know that when her words come out short and sharp like that, you do what she asks, even though I hate leaving my shredders to turn to mush. I came back with 6 envelopes. Kat saw me and snatched them off me and picked out a big brown envelope and a small white one. I could see our school emblem on the white one. It's like a squashed up X, and over it is a bishop's hat, which is called a mitre. Kat tried to hide it behind the big brown envelope, but Mum saw her. "Not so fast, Katrina," Mum said. When Mum calls Kat Katrina, you know that trouble is coming. Kat's lips pressed up tight. She handed over the post, all items except the brown envelope, which she held up for all to see that it was addressed to her, Katrina Spark. She opened it and a catalogue came out. It was called Hair Flare. She walked over to the door, head nodding. I ate Shredders number 7 through to 17. Dad started humming the theme tune of Laurel and Hardy, his favourite thing to watch on TV. He'd got the other sock on and was buttering toast and his hair stood on end, and Mum would have said he looked like the spit of Stan from Laurel and Hardy. The spit is a way of saying exactly like, but don't ask me why. Anyway, Stan has brown hair and Dad's hair is fair, like mine, so he doesn't look exactly like Stan at all. "Katrina!" Mum bellowed. The 18th Shreddy fell off my spoon. "What?" "This letter from your school." What letter from my school? This letter, the one you tried to hide. What about it? It says you were missing last week without a sick note, last Tuesday. Oh, yeah. Well what? Where were you? She was AWOL, Mum, I suggested. Cat and Mum stared at me. AWOL, like in the army, I explained. Absent without leave. Get stuffed, you creep, Cat hissed. She went out and slammed the door after her. The radio programme switched back to the news. Turn that thing off, Ted, Mum said. I fiddled with the switch, but she pulled the plug out of the socket instead. They were silent. I heard Dad munching on some toast. She's going off the rails, Mum said to Dad. Off the rails, I repeated, thinking of train accidents. I suppose Mum was saying something about Katrina being AWOL. Maybe off the rails was another way of saying skiving, which means not going to school when you should. But I didn't dare check, not with Mum in this mood. Off the rails and nobody cares, she said. I used to bunk off at her age, Dad said. I'd spend the day riding buses, smoking fags in the park. My 20th shreddy nearly went down the wrong way. The thought of Dad with a cigarette in his hand was very strange. He never smokes now. Dad tapped Mum's shoulder, and when she looked up at him, he kissed her on the middle of her forehead. It gave off a funny squeak that nearly put me off the rest of my shredders. Let's discuss it tonight, Faith. I've got to run. There's a meeting about blowing up the barracks. Mum's lip went up a bit. All right, love. Later. I should explain here that Dad is not a terrorist who goes around blowing up the places where soldiers live. He is a demolition expert, and the barracks was the local name for Barrington Heights, the tallest tower block in our South London borough. It used to be where people who are socially excluded lived. Being socially excluded is a bit like being excluded from school. Instead of a head teacher telling you have to leave, it's more that everybody else in the rest of society acts like you don't exist. And you end up with all the other people who are being ignored. And you're so angry that society is treating you like this, that you take drugs and shoplift and form gangs in revenge. And the people in Barrington Heights used to do all of those things. Dad said it was not that the people were bad to begin with. He said the building was sick and made them sick too, a bit like a virus. So he and the council had decided to move them to new homes and blow up the building and start again. Dad got his jacket on. He said, "Goodbye, Ted," to me and went out. Then Mum sat down again and went through the rest of the post. She got to the last piece, a pale lilac envelope. I saw her holding it to her nose and sniffing it as if it was edible. Then she smiled. Her lips went right up, but her eyes went watery. This meant she was sad and happy at the same time. "Glory be," she whispered. She opened it and read what was inside. I ate my last 3 shredders, numbers 35 through 37. She put down the lilac sheet of paper and ruffled the top of my head. A thing she does sometimes, which makes my hand shake itself out. "Hold tight, Ted," she said. "A hurricane's coming." "No, it isn't," I said. "We're moving into a large anticyclone." I want to be a meteorologist when I grow up, so I know. Hurricanes die out halfway across the Atlantic and they rarely hit Britain. Even the one in 1987 wasn't technically a hurricane. The weatherman called Michael Fish, who is famous for getting it wrong, actually got it right. It was only a bad storm and it had no name. A real hurricane is always given a name, like Hannah, which gusted up to 160 miles an hour in 1957, or Hugo, which flattened half of South Carolina in the USA in 1989, or Hurricane Katrina, a Category 5 storm which devastated New Orleans in 2005. I'm sure it's no coincidence that one of the most catastrophic storms of all time has the same name as my sister. "I don't mean it literally," Mum said, whisking my empty cereal bowl away from me. "It's Hurricane Gloria who's on her way. My sister, remember? She's coming to visit us along with her son, Salem." "The ones who live in Manchester?" "That's right. It's been more than 5 years since we saw them, Ted. I just don't know where the time's gone. It sounded like she thought time was something that comes and goes, like the weather. I shook my head. No, Mum, I explained. Time doesn't go anywhere. Does in this house, Ted, down a black hole. I blinked at her, trying to figure out if she might have a point. She laughed and said she was joking and ruffled my hair again. Go on, Ted, off to school with you. So I went on my zigzag way across the common, thinking about time, black holes, Einstein's theory of relativity, and storm warnings. I imagined Hurricane Gloria building up force as it drew nearer, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. My thoughts were so good that I nearly ended up walking into the pond on the wrong side of the common and got to school only just in time. Down a black hole, I said to myself as I ran across the playground. My hand shook itself out. Down a bloody black hole. It's all right to say. I'll leave that up to you. So what I want you to have a think about is, so they started chapter 1 with Salem going missing, and now they've done a flashback so that you get a bit of backstory before they got to that bit. I think, though, Ted is a really interesting character. So have a think about, what do we know about Ted and why might he be slightly different to Kat? What is their relationship? They're brother and sister, but they're obviously quite different. So have a think about that. In the meantime, I'm going to get excited about my walk. And you guys be good and stay safe and wash your hands and all that business. And I will see you in a couple of days' time because Mrs. Brazier and Mrs. Woodward are going to do the next chapters. Be good. Take care.